I'm Teisha Bader, in for Mark Golub. And in the news, a landmark legal ruling against Iran and Syria for their financial support of terror group Hamas. In October of 2014, 3-month-old Chaya Zissel Braun was killed in a vehicular terror attack in Jerusalem carried out by Hamas. Braun was an American citizen, and a U.S. court has now ruled that Syria and Iran are to pay $178,500 in damages to her family. Attorney Nitsana Darshan-Letiner leads the Israel Law Center, Shurat HaDin, and represented the Braun family in the case. She now joins us via Skype from Tel Aviv to discuss this significant victory. Thank you so much, Nitsana, for joining us on JBS.
Thank you for having me.
So first of all, congratulations on this historic and important ruling. And of course, what happened to the Braun family is indescribable. It's a tragic loss. Tell us about what happened that day in October of 2014.
Well, it was a very nice day until the point that a Palestinian from an Arab village of East Jerusalem drove a truck into a train station near Ramot, near the area of western Jerusalem, and he drove into a group of people. The one that got hit was a baby, 3 months old, Chaya Zissel. She was lying in her stroller, in her carriage, along with her father who was holding her. She died instantly, and the father got severely injured, was rushed to the hospital. Thank God he's okay today.
Now, of course, there's nothing that can possibly compensate the Brauns for the loss of their child. What was the goal, though, of filing the lawsuit, and what is the significance of this ruling?
Shurat HaDin has been filing lawsuits against terror entities, those who sponsor terrorism, those who facilitate these horrible terror attacks for more than a decade now. Our goal is to bring terrorism into a halt by going after terror financing. Money is the oxygen to the terrorism. If you stop the flow of the money, you can stop the flow of the terrorism. And our goal is to fight those who are carrying out this attack and those who are funding them. Iran, since day one, sponsored terror attacks done by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, Hezbollah. They support them with weapon, money, ammunition, shelter. They train them. They send operatives to help them, to assist them. They teach them how to carry these attacks. They fund their schools, their hospitals, their all social networks, and this must come to an end, because this money is the fuel of the terror attacks. So the Braun family agreed to join this fight, and they filed this lawsuit against Iran and against Syria in the Federal District Court of Washington, claiming that this individual, who considered to be a lone wolf, that ran their baby over and killed her, was not really a lone wolf, actually was part of the Hamas organization, was part of it. Hamas took responsibility after the attack. He had uncles and family members of Hamas participating in different previous terror attacks. We brought experts to court to testify why this is not a lone wolf attack, why it's a Hamas attack, and other experts that testify how Iran sponsored Hamas. And we were able to win a judgment finding Iran responsible for this horrible attack.
Now, you were quoted after the ruling that was handed down saying, "This judgment sends a clear message that there is a very heavy price to be paid for financing terrorism and spilling innocent blood on the streets of Jerusalem," saying that Shurat HaDin will relentlessly pursue the Islamic Republic and Syria through all legal avenues in order to ensure that these judgments are enforced and that the terror victims achieve a measure of justice. How did the Braun family feel after receiving that measure of justice, in fact?
Look, as you began your talk, no money can compensate any terror victim's family. No money can bring back life. But money is the sort of the things that you need in order to fight back, because you're taking it from the one who devastated your life and you're using it for your benefit. You don't remain a victim anymore. You're fighting back. And this is what the Braun family feels, that there are no victims anymore, that they are fighting back, that they are pursuing justice. And this money should not remain in the hands of the terror regime, but should be given to the terror victims. They are very pleased, they are very satisfied with the judgment, and to a certain extent, they hope that others will follow them and will join this fight, because as private citizens, this is the way to join the fight against terrorism. The military does this work, the government does this work. Us as private individuals can do our work as well.
And you bring up an interesting point, because you hear people say, you know, it's very, very hard to stop a terrorist, especially someone who is basically intent on carrying out a suicide attack. They're going to give up their life while taking other people with them. It's very hard to stop those situations. But the point that you bring up is, in fact, they need the fuel, they need the money, they need the finances to be organized, to carry out these attacks, plan these attacks. And so, in fact, there is something that can be done, and you are truly leading the fight to do that.
Right. There is no point to go after the individual. I mean, in this case, he got killed. In other lone wolf attacks, they remain alive, they get arrested, they get sentenced and sit in jail. Not talking about they are getting compensations from the Palestinian Authority, getting money, their families are being compensated. It's a total different issue. But the fact is that we are not, as the family of the terror victims, going after the individual. The law enforcement officials in Israel will do their work. We are going after their infrastructure, after the pipeline through where they get the money from, after the source of the money. This is our job, this is our fight, and thank God in recent years, this is also our victories.
So let's talk about some of the other cases that you've dealt with. And Shurat HaDin doesn't deal just with cases of terrorism, but with issues that also threaten the state of Israel, like the BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions movement that seeks to delegitimize the state of Israel. Before we go into how you go about fighting BDS, how do you see the rise of BDS over the last few years? What do you think is at the root of so many instances, so many efforts from the BDS movement as of late?
Yeah, you know something, I'm not so much going to tell you that the BDS have been effective in recent years. It's been loud, that's true. It's been spreading all over the places, it's true. But thank God they haven't been so successful. And I'm saying it because I'm living the life of protecting the state of Israel. And I see that people who want to boycott Israel, people who call to sanction Israel, people who call to divest from it, are just talking. They don't have the tools. They are not in the right positions to actually boycott Israel. We see loud groups in the universities asking the students, calling their university to divest from Israel, but we don't see the university takes any steps. And there is a reason why. Because any boycotting the state of Israel is an act based on racism, it's anti-discrimination act, based on nationality, which is not permitted according to the law in the United States, according to the law in Canada, even according to the law in Europe. You cannot boycott a country just because of their nationality. Therefore, we won't see so much going on. And on the other flip side, you can't really fight them because people are free to call to BDS, people are free to alien the Jewish state, to compare it to apartheid state, even to say that the IDF is a baby's killer, and there is nothing you can do against them. They are protected by freedom of speech, academic freedom, freedom of organizations. Their acts are done lawfully under the protection of the Constitution. The only time they cross the line is when they actually boycott, when they actually divest from Israel. And then I said before, they are not doing it so often. So in this sense, I'm pretty relaxed that the BDS movement, which was very loud for many, many years, now is quiet down. And I believe that slowly, slowly, it will disappear.
So speaking of freedom of speech and rights that are protected, you just filed a case this month against social media company Twitter. Can you tell us about that and what are some of the challenges in that case?
Do you know the recent wave of terrorism in Israel that began in October 15 have been taking place by teenagers, all the individuals that grabbed a knife and went and stabbed Jews are really 15, 16 years old kids. And when you wonder where they have the idea to go and kill Jews with a knife, you realize very quickly that they are getting incited. But this sort of incitement that used to take place in the town square, in the mosques, today is taking place in the social media. And where the officials of the Israeli government tried their hardest to quiet this down, to ask Facebook or Twitter to take this incitement down or to close pages or accounts that call to kill Jews, both Facebook and Twitter refused. Now, Facebook is the most popular network among the Palestinians, so this was our first target. We filed a lawsuit against Facebook, first on behalf of 20,000 Israelis for an injunction demanding that Facebook will take the incitement down, but also be proactive, monitor the incitement, and delete these pages that call to kill Jews. We claim that Facebook has the algorithm to do so. And then next, we filed a monetary lawsuit against Facebook because what they're doing is actually aiding and abetting terrorism. And I will elaborate on this one because this is exactly what Twitter is doing as well. This recent case against Twitter, we filed on behalf of victims from ISIS, terror victims from the Paris attack and the Brussels attack, for the similar claim against Facebook, which Twitter assisting terrorism. Twitter is letting ISIS use their platform to spread their messages, to teach their ideology, to recruit militants, to spread their propaganda, to send out these horrible beheading videos. ISIS is using Twitter as a tool, as an essential tool in their terror attacks. We saw it in the Paris attack, we saw it in the Brussels attack, where the terrorists themselves had Twitter accounts and they were tweeting each other and connecting with each other through Twitter. So this must stop because no American company is allowed to provide any type of services to a designated organization. And social media network services are not permitted to be provided to ISIS, which is a designated organization. So last week we filed this huge lawsuit against Twitter on behalf of the terror victims. And I believe that this is the only way the giants from Palo Alto will understand that there is a price to assist terrorism, and will start changing their way they're doing businesses. They will start changing on their own. We already started seeing it, where Twitter is closing accounts, where Twitter is being alert to what they're doing. Unfortunately, these corporations, which make billions of dollars, will learn only through paying millions of dollars. And this is the goal and the purpose of these lawsuits.
Now, the lawsuits that you brought over the last few years regarding Facebook, what has been the response, or where do those stand?
Facebook hired a very big firm from New York. They filed motion to dismiss the cases. They claim they are immune according to the Communication Decency Act. This is a law in the United States that from 1996 that grants blanket immunity to servers and social media networks. But you know, it was legislated to keep, when Congress wanted to keep the internet open, so he just stripped from any liability those giants of servers of social network from the content that goes on their pages. So Facebook said, I'm immune. I can't be sued for the content. And we respond back. We say that first, when Congress legislated this Communication Decency Act, they did not envision this sort of incitement that really caused people to go and kill. This sort of speech that causes an imminent and clear danger is not protected by the First Amendment, is prohibited, and is not protected by freedom of speech. Second, we said that Facebook is not a simple bulletin board as they claim. They're very involved with their users. They push ads. They connect between users. They actually connect between those who incite to kill to those who really go and do it. They make the world so small that without them, people from around the world would not know about each other and about the way to go and kill. And third, we claim that Facebook does get involved in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, depends to what side. In order to prove that, we created 2 pages on Facebook, 2 identical pages. One page called to kill Palestinians, one page called to kill Israelis. And we posted identical posts with identical images, just with one difference. One's against Palestinians, the other one against Israelis. And after 2 days, we asked Facebook to take both pages down. Facebook immediately took down the page that called to kill Palestinians. They sent us a firm message saying that they checked the page and it does not fit their community standards. But they left the Israeli page standing. They sent us a message saying that they checked the page and it does not violate their community standards. Now Facebook has to come to court and explain this.
That is interesting and I'm sure very challenging. You also deal with defending Israel and members of the IDF at the ICC, the International Criminal Court. What are some of those cases? Is that battle different than others, or does it have its own challenges that you deal with going to the ICC?
Yes, I think this is very, very severe, the situation that Israel finds herself now, especially after the UN Security Council resolution that declares the territories as non-legal settlements, which is a crime against international law. We know that the Palestinians and Israel's enemies have been threatening Israel for years now that if they don't get what they need through direct negotiation, they will go to the International Criminal Court and indict Israel for war crimes. And in September 2012, the Palestinian Authority upgraded their status to an observer state. In January 15, they signed the Rome Treaty. And in April that year, they asked the International Criminal Court to become a state member because now they are an observer state. And they're a step away from filing war crime complaints against Israel. So we in Shurat HaDin are fighting back on this arena as well. And as we understand that we cannot stop the Palestinians from joining the International Criminal Court, we can try to deter them. And we realize that the jurisdiction of the court goes both ways. It's a two-sided street. Once the Palestinians become members of the court, they can become plaintiffs, but they can become defendants as well. And what the Palestinians did during the Intifada is a war crime. Suicide bombing, drive-by shooting, shooting thousands of missiles towards populated area is a crimes against the humanity. So we went and filed war crime complaints against the leaders of the Palestinian Authority, warning the Palestinian Authority that if you go to the International Criminal Court, we will be waiting for you there. And the same way with the allegation against Israel for building settlements in the West Bank, in Judea and Samaria, we found that Israel is not the only one that is blamed for occupying territories. Turkey is occupying northern Cyprus, Morocco occupies Western Sahara, Russia occupied Georgia, and these are conflicts that we are trying to bring into the International Criminal Court to tie the hands of the court, because we know that the court will not indict Russia or Turkey or Morocco. They will say that they are not getting involved in such type of conflict. And we hope that when the Palestinians will file their war crime complaints against Israel, based on the allegations of occupying territories, the hands of the court will be tied. There will be a ruling saying that they are not getting involved in this type of conflicts.
Now, Nitsana, a few months ago, we had Kent Yalowitz on JBS. He spoke about the landmark verdict handed down in 2015 against the PLO and the Palestinian Authority, which was reversed last year by a federal appeals court in Manhattan. You were involved in that case as well. Can you tell us where things stand? Is anything moving? Is there any progress being made as far as dealing with that reversal?
So I guess Attorney Yalowitz gave you the whole brief about where the Sokolov standing up to 2 weeks ago. So I can tell you that we're going to file an appeal to the Supreme Court. I believe that we can overturn the decision of the courts of appeal. I think, and I want to believe that with the new administration, we will get the government to our side and not against us, as we had with the previous government. And we will bring the court to understand that the special law that Congress enacted, the Anti-Terrorism Act, which granted extraterritorial jurisdiction to the court to deal with terror attacks happened outside of the United States. This is the law on base we filed the Sokolov case, is a constitutional law that enable United States citizens to fight those who devastated their life. Congress had a goal with legislating this law, and I hope that the Supreme Court will rule our way and will leave this law standing and effective.
Now, we'll just review the case regarding the PLO and the Palestinian Authority. It was for U.S. citizens that were killed or for their family members that were killed during a certain time period in Israel. It was the second Intifada, if I'm not mistaken, Nitsana?
Yes, it was between 2000 and 2004, 10 horrible terror attacks of American citizens.
Right, and they used the U.S. Anti-Terrorism Act in order to sue the PLO and the PA. There was a multi-million-dollar verdict again, and it was reversed. So now you're saying there will be an appeal, which is very good news.
It works based on personal jurisdiction. A very limited argument of the Palestinian Authority, but not limited enough not to overturn the decision. I believe it was a political decision because the State Department got involved in the case and and explained to the court how significant is the Palestinian Authority in the Middle East, how essential asset it is to the United States, how it's a national interest of the United States. And obviously, when a court sees such a letter, such a statement of interest from the State Department, he will think twice if he wants to keep a judgment for $655 million pending against the Palestinian Authority, or just simply cancel it based on personal jurisdiction arguments.
Nitsana, the work that you do and your organization does is truly astounding. I'm just wondering how you deal with the level of stress or with the challenges. It seems like a huge, huge task, and I'm wondering if this is something you always aspired to do and how you deal with it personally on a day-to-day basis.
Look, it's extremely hard. The work itself is very, very hard. You see, I'm talking to you at 11 o'clock Israel time. It's around the clock. I spend many hours away from home. I travel a lot, and it's very, very demanding. But on the personal level, it's a heartbreaking job, because on a daily basis, we deal with these testimonials of the victims, which going into details, what's happened to them in this horrible day that changed their life entirely, and how they cope with it day after day, actually hour after hour, or if to be precise, minute after minute. And when it comes to evidential hearings in court, and you standing there, hearing their testimonies on the witness stand, looking around and realizing that there is no dry eye left in the courtroom, it's very, very difficult. But in the end, when you win the case, and especially when you win and enforce the judgment and collecting it and getting some sort of compensation to the terror victims, you know that you did your work. You know that you were successful. You know that you aided these terror victims. You know you're fighting for your country.
Nitsana, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us on JBS and for the incredible work that you do with Shurat HaDin, and we hope to speak with you again very soon. Toda rabah.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Nitsana Darshan-Letiner is the director of Shurat HaDin, the Israel Law Center in Tel Aviv, who recently won a landmark case against Syria and Iran for their material support of terror group Hamas. Shurat HaDin is at the forefront of fighting terrorism and protecting the state of Israel and the rights of the Jewish people across the globe. As always, thank you to our director, Sloan Copeland, production coordinator, Serge Goldberg, JBS's associate director, Dara Golub, and editors, Dennis Golan and John McDevitt. I'm Teisha Bader, in for Mark Golub on this edition of In the News.